All right, welcome back to day 2 of your virtual learning experience. I hope day 1 went okay. I only heard from one of you, so I'm assuming it went fine. Once again, if you need to contact me today, I'll be on my email all day, and then I will be on Zoom video conferencing from 10 to 11 in the morning, and you can check those details in Canvas for the link. Today is another flashback to another type of function. We started with quadratic functions. Yesterday we remembered absolute value functions, and today we're going to remember exponential functions from chapter 6. Now chapter 6 was the one we went over pretty quickly. We only had I think I called it a quest, since we kind of skipped around on chapter 6. So I'm going to go back and remind you of this stuff. And then we're going to move on. There are also no practice problems today. Tomorrow we'll do 8-6, and then you'll pick back up in your green packet on the practice problems for 8-6. Here we go. So an exponential function, remember, is in the form of y equals a times b to the x minus h plus k. Okay, so we always know we have an exponential function when x is in the exponent. Okay, h and k are still going to be what they've been, and we'll talk about a and b here in a second. So the first thing I want to talk about or remind you, because yes, we have done this before, is that exponential growth, if I am reading from left to right, is growing. Okay, if I'm reading from left to right over here for the decay, it is going down. So growth gets bigger, decay gets smaller. How do you know what's what? The growth is a whole number, the decay is a fraction. Now it has to be the number that's right next to x. Okay, so B tells you your growth and decay. Okay, so growth, B has to be greater than 1, and decay, it has to be between 0 and 1, also known as a fraction. Okay, your H lies again. This tells you your shifts. So this is your horizontal shifts. Your K tells the truth. This is your vertical shift, like always. Now, A is a bit trickier. Let's talk about this for a second. First of all, A tells you whether or not it's reflected. So if it's negative, it's going to be reflected. A also tells you your Y-intercept. Okay, so if there is, like in these two examples, there was no A. You have to assume it's 1. So looky there, there's my Y-intercept of 1. Okay, so not all problems will have an A written in, but you need to be able to recognize what that is. One more thing with B, how you find B. Yes, if it's greater than 1, it's a growth, and if it's between 0 and 1, it's a decay. But it's what you multiply by. We'll talk more about this in a second. I'm trying to write really small. B is what you multiply by when you're graphing an exponential function from the table. So we skipped 2 parts on this question. It says sketch a reflection over the x-axis. Remember, that's your x-axis. So a reflection would look like this, and a reflection would sort of kind of look like this. So how would the equation change in both of these? A started as a positive number. Now A is going to be a negative number on both of these. Okay, let's look at some examples. So for each exponential function, determine whether it's a growth or decay, if it's reflected, and how it's shifted. Okay, so remember, the number right next to the x tells us growth or decay. Since that's a whole number, that's a growth. Is it reflected? No, because there's no negative in front of the 2/3. And your shift, there's your h. H is positive 1, h is line, so we're shifting left 1. Number 2, 2/3 right here tells me this is a decay. Is it reflected? Yes. It's shift. I have -1 and -3. H lies, so I'm going right 1 and down 3. Number 3 is a growth. It's reflected because that's a negative, and its shifts are left 2 and up 1. H lies, K tells the truth. All right, since there are no practice problems for this one, go ahead and hit pause. Try 4, 5, and 6 on your own, and then check your answers here in a second. All right, number 4 is change colors here. Number 4 is a growth. It is not reflected, and it shifts. I only have 1, and H lies, so it shifts are left 2. Number 5, this is right next to the X is ooh, careful. It's a fraction, but it's a fraction of 4/3. Ooh, I almost missed that. And 4/3 turns into 1 1/3, which just so happens to be bigger than 1. How many of you got that? I'm impressed if you did. So this is a growth. No, it is not reflected. And its shifts are right 4 and up 3. Number 6 is a decay. It's reflected because that is negative, and my only shift is down 7. How'd you do? If you struggled, make sure you reach out and ask some questions. All right, number 7, 8, and 9, we're talking about comparing functions. So how does g of x compare to f of x? Okay, so we went from +1 to +4. So remember, h lies. So I really went, this is my number line, I really went from -1 to -4. So how did this shift? It shifted, FTED, it shifted 3 to the left. Okay, this one didn't shift any horizontally, but it went from -3 to +4. So how many did it shift up? Oh wait, it went from -3 to +4, so I'm actually going down. No, I'm not. What am I talking about? I was right the first time. So -3 to +4, I have to go up 3 and then up another 4, so this shifted up 7. See if you can pause and do number 9 on your own. 3 things. Thing number 1, it's reflected. It went from +2 to +0. So remember, h lies, so that means it went left 2. And it went from +1 to -4, so that means it went down 5. There were 3 things on that one. Number 10, if I'm reading from left to right, start over here, end over here, this is a decay. Okay, transformations, you got to look right here. So it's going from 1 to -3. So I'm going down 4 is my transformation. This is a growth as I'm reading from left to right. It is increasing. This transformation went down 2 and right 3. I'm going from these two similar points, down 2, right 3. Pause this, try 12 on your own. All right, number 12, first of all, it is a growth. Okay, if I'm reading from left to right, it is growing. Now, some of you may be confused that this is going down, but it's really a reflected growth. Okay, so transformation, it has been reflected. So if I reflect this and it goes to here, if I'm reflecting over the x-axis, that means it's really only going down 2. That was a tricky one. All right, now bust out those graphing calculators, please. And just remember how to plug these in. So you're going to type the equation into y equals, then you're going to press graph. If you get a really funky graph, remember zoom 6 will get you back to a standard window. And then you're going to press second graph to use, that's a typo, use the table to get the points to find the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to pull up my graphing calculator screen. We'll see how this works. Hold on. All right, I got it. Hopefully you can see my calculator screen. So plug in -5 caret to the x plus 2, arrow over to get out of the exponent, and plus 8. Go ahead and hit graph. And if your graph does not fit on that window, remember zoom 6 is zoom standard, and it'll get you back to that nice place. All right, so is this a growth or is this a decay? You gotta be careful, okay? This is reflected, so this part going down is reflected of what a growth would be. Okay, so circle growth on your note packet because that is a growth. Yes, it is reflected because the negative in front of the 5 and it's pointing down. Next thing you need to find is the y-intercept. Second graph will give you the table. And then look for where x is 0. So your y-intercept is -17. Okay, and then just pick a couple more points that you could graph. So I could graph -1, 3. I could graph -2, 7. I could graph -3, 7.8. Okay, all of those are easily graphable. Looking back at our graph, our domain is going to be all real numbers again. Our range does not exist above 8. Okay, so your range has to be less than 8. It cannot be equal to 8. It has to be less than 8. Now I'm going to try to get my note packet back. Hang tight. I wish I remember what I said. I said this was a growth. Yes, it's reflected. Your y-intercept was negative. Oh, I don't remember. Your y-intercept was 0, -17. And if I picked a few other points, so 0 was -17, -1 was 3, -2 was 7, and -3 was 7.8. The domain was all reals. Range had to be less than 8. So you can't really graph 0, -17, but somewhere. Oh, what did I do? That's what happens when I put my palm down. You know it's somewhere down there. -1, 3 is right here. -2, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then that next one is like 7.8. So the general picture is going to look like that. I know we can't be perfect, but you can get close. All right, hit pause. Try number 2 on your own. And hit play when you're ready. This is a fraction. It is a decay. Since there's no negative out here, that is a no. Your y-intercept should be -2. So that I can plot. So 0, -2 is 1 point from the table, another point from the table. Should have written it in the right order. Hold on. So my first point I could get is -2, 4. My second point, -1, 0. My third point, 0, -2. My fourth point, 1, -3. So -2, 4 is over 2 up 4. -1, 0 is right there. 0, -2 already plotted, and 1, -3 is down here. So since we're decaying, that's your general shape. All real numbers, your range has to be greater than -4. Because if you look at that table, this graph will never go below -4. It won't even touch -4, so it can't be equal to either. And with 15 seconds left to spare before this video cuts me off, I am finished. There are no practice problems today. We will pick up with 8-6 the next time I send you something. Have a good day.